Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. Today I'm going to be talking about the overestimation of moderate Republican candidates, part two. So I did this first series most notably on Brian Kemp and Glenn Youngkin in Virginia. Now I'm going to be talking about Joe Lombardo in Nevada, who also won in 2022 based off the circumstances rather than the actual Nevada electorate. So I wanted to look at the exit polls in Nevada to tell that story. So if we look at the exit polls in Nevada, we'll see that what I noticed the most is the fact that the Hispanic Latino electorate is only 13%. You go back to 2020, you'll see that the Hispanic and Latino electorate was 17% in Nevada, which means it was a 4% decrease amongst Hispanic Latino voters. And if we scroll down, we'll see that this was roughly a Trump plus 5 electorate. And the reason that happened was because of turnout amongst the Democratic base in Nevada, being particularly Hispanic Latino voters. And obviously, because of that, that dramatically made Nevada vote a lot more Republican than it should have. And the fact that you have Joe Biden, even with a more Republican electorate, still having roughly a 45% approval amongst voters that voted in Nevada is not good for Republicans. But that's a topic for another day. But looking at this was a pretty Republican friendly environment. And with that, the fact that even with Republican friendly environment, Republicans were barely able to defeat Steve Sisolak, an unpopular governor, with a moderate Republican candidate that represented a Democratic county. It really does speak to a testament of Nevada. And it's a more important thing because a lot of Republicans think Nevada is actually trending right, and the demographics don't back that up. Nevada is one of the few states in the country where there is a majority population, which means there's more people of color than white people. And as we know, people of color vote Democratic. And obviously, people of color are not a monolith, but regardless, they are still a Democratic voting bloc overall. Whether we're talking about black voters, they vote 90 to 10 for Democrats. We're talking about Hispanic and Asian voters. They break roughly 2 to 1 to Democrats as well. And we have seen in some races where Republicans have outperformed with Asian Americans. Hispanic Latino voters have a history of shifting to incumbents, which is part of the reason why you saw Steve Sisolak and many other Democratic candidates outperform of Hispanic Latino voters, even though they might not be strong candidates, just because of those voters trending to the incumbent. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense why people have that mentality. You know, I was raised by the method of if the clock's not broke, don't fix it. So that makes a lot of sense when it comes to politics. But the saddest thing for Republicans in Nevada is if you look at the share of the white electorate relative to Nevada's actual population, Republicans have no room in Nevada but to fall. And with those very important key factors, Republicans are looking for, not too bright of a future in Nevada. And I think that 2016 should have been a testament of that. Democrats have a lot of room to grow with Hispanic Latino turnout and etc., while Republicans only have room to fall with the share of the electorate being white. So, with those factors, with looking at Joe Lombardo, a moderate pro choice Republican who still was barely able to flip Nevada, mainly due to obviously Hispanic Latino turnout dropping dramatically, which allowed Clark County, a predominantly Hispanic county, to shift right. When you don't have your base turnout, you're going to have the county shift in the opposition's favor. And it's something that you saw in the Rust Belt, where when you saw a lot of working class rural voters not turn out, you saw a lot of these counties shift to John Fetterman and shift to Gretchen Whitmer, etc. And it wasn't because those candidates did better amongst those voters, it's because the opposition didn't turn out. Well, it's the same thing in these other places. When you don't have Hispanic Latino voters turn out, you're going to have a disproportionately Republican electorate. And I wanted to point that out because Democrats really held up, at least with the margin of Hispanic Latino voters in Nevada. They outperformed Joe Biden in terms of the actual margin, but where they went wrong was with turnout. And even with Democrats struggling with turnout, they were still able to hold on. And something that Steve Sisolak lacked that Catherine Cortez Masto had was a specific appeal to Hispanic Latino voters. Catherine Cortez Masto was the first Latina woman elected to Senate, and it had a very important impact to Latina women, particularly in the Las Vegas metro area, because people don't abandon their own representation. And with those key factors, when people see themselves in someone, they are really motivated to turn out for them. It's something you saw with Hispanic Latino voters in Nevada with Captain Cortez Masto, and you saw Black voters in Georgia with Raphael Warnock. So with that, Democrats have a lot of room to improve in the state of Nevada, and the math backs that up. The exit polls back that up. And the myth and the argument that Republicans make that Nevada is trending right is not a fair argument. I argue things with demographics and statistical data. And when you don't have a demographic show up, of course a county is going to shift to right. That does not mean that county is actually trending right. When you have a Republican-friendly electorate, and even with that, Republicans still barely did better in Nevada, that's very unfortunate. Because in 2024, and numerous other elections in the future, more than likely Hispanic Latino turnout is going to be significantly better. And I'm not saying that you won't see a situation ever again where Democrats will struggle with getting out their base, and that is something that's worrisome for Democrats because Democrats did not do really well in 2020 with getting out Hispanic Latino voters as well, which is another reason why Clark County narrowed up a little bit. So as long as what Democrats need to focus on is obviously stabilizing their base, and for Republicans, they need to look elsewhere on the map. I think that Nevada is one of the states where Republicans would have to have a electoral landslide to win. And they learned that with Joe Lombardo being probably their best picked candidate in 2022 and still barely defeated an unpopular incumbent. An incumbent is still an incumbent, and we know incumbents are not as easy to beat as people might perceive. But he still was expected to win by significantly more, and he failed to achieve that with a Republican-friendly environment, with Hispanic Latino turnout being dramatically lower than it was in previous elections. So the testament is that Democrats can have a lot of room to grow in Nevada, while Republicans do not have that same luxury. I definitely think that in the future, Republicans are going to continue gaining in these rural areas, but there's not as many people in these rural areas. And with Washoe, which is a county that Democrats find a way to improve in regardless, and Las Vegas being as minority friendly as it is, and attracting a lot of voters around the country, this will benefit Democrats in the future. So I wanted to make this video to talk about just a part 2 of this series of talking about minor Republican candidates. Being in the military, I think, really teaches me a lot of very important things when it comes to dealing with people of so many different, political beliefs and, different opinions. And I feel like that's one of the most valuable things that our country has to offer. And when I talk to, people on the opposition side of the aisle, they oftentimes think that, getting rid of Trump or just replacing Trump is going to solve Republicans' problems. And it's really out of touch, with how Democrats feel, how the opposition feels about Republicans, because people have a problem with Republican ideology. And the sad thing is that Donald Trump is actually more popular than a lot of Republican policies. And when you have someone that's unpopular as Donald Trump, but he's still more popular than how unpopular, overturning abortion, etc. is, it lets you know that Republicans are ideologically at a disadvantage in terms of trying to compete in the modern world. And it's something that you don't see in America. You see across the Western world in general, where you just see a more progressive and left-wing policies. And it's something that with younger voters and younger people, obviously with younger people being disproportionately Hispanic and Asian American, which are Democratic voting blocs, you're going to see America become more democratic just based off of the demographic changes in the country. So when talking to people on the opposite side of the aisle, they oftentimes think that, if they can not, get rid of Donald Trump and run anybody else, they can win. And the evidence and data doesn't back that up. So that's all I wanted to talk about today in this series about Joe Lombardo in particular. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I'll be uploading again another video about some of the things that you saw happen with the Essence Festival and etc. So make sure to tune into that. Have a nice day, you guys. Goodbye.